Okay, so for my AFL Fantasy Team Reveal. So, what I'm going to do is basically any players that were part of my Supercoach team and also part of this team, I won't cover them again. You can just either review my Supercoach video, which will have already been uploaded before this one, or alternatively, look, just ask in the comments section below and I can give sort of a few words on them. But there are quite a few differences with these teams. So, and there's probably a few that some of you may have in your Supercoach team that I've got in here. So, yeah, let's see what I've got. So, Dacos, Sheasel, already mentioned, won't cover them again. But Whitfield is a different player for AFL Fantasy, so I'll cover him. So, absolute key for GWS if they want to be a contender this year. And look, he had that sort of boost towards the latter part of the year, so I do think there is that slight upside for price growth. So do watch out for that. But yeah, the key for him is just health. And in fantasy, there's the 2 trades a week. So yeah, look, given that, I can always easily flip him for someone else. So there are always those options. But I would imagine with a Whitfield, he is low ownership. So I guess he's a unique in that respect. But I just think he's a really good pick, assuming he can remain healthy. So yeah, let's see what happens. Young, I've got in the Supercoach team. I won't labour over him again. Christian Salem is a different player, however, and he's one that I think will actually be very consequential with regards to this AFL season and Melbourne's success or otherwise. So, if Salem was to stay in defence this year, I don't believe Melbourne would be a top 4 side this year. But with him moving into the midfield, I'm really intrigued by Melbourne's premiership contending chances. And here's why. So as a junior, Salem was a midfielder. He wasn't actually a defender. But just, of course, upon joining Melbourne, and he developed into a defender. But the keys with him, so he'll translate really well to the midfield, in my opinion, for AFL purposes, because he's always had that contested side, and he's also got that tackling side as well. So he's got the hardness, and he'll cover the ground fine. But the key with him is that he's that injection of skill and class that Melbourne midfield has really lacked. And specifically as well, he'll help with those entry kicks inside 50. So he'll add a real and necessary balance to that Melbourne midfield that they've really been lacking. So he's one where I've considered him in Supercoach, narrowly misses out there, but he makes my AFL fantasy side, particularly with my interest in having an extra premium defender in fantasy. Specifically, why? Because I don't see a lot of the defense rookies scoring that well, because many of them are key positioners and they don't score well in fantasy specifically, and not nearly to the degree they do in Supercoach. So yeah, that's why you've got Salem as one of my defenders here. But I do think with the midfield minutes, as we saw in the preseason, he will get that scoring boost. And last year was an off year for him anyway. So even if he was hypothetically in defence, he'd have that scope to improve anyway. But yeah, I do think he'll be one of those cash generators for sure. Williams, yeah, got him in Supercoach, and again, bargain in fantasy. Reed Phillips, again, have in Supercoach. And again, you could consider someone like maybe I don't know, what's Caulfield priced at? He might be a bit expensive here. Yeah, look, you could consider him, but probably a bit pricey, and the job security isn't quite there. So, yeah, that's why I left him out. And Gibcus, well, he doesn't score well in fantasy. Toby Pink could be another you could look at, but yeah, again, not too fast, and there might be some slight job security things. And look, with a Phillips, he intercepts better than a Pink, so that should give you a bit there. But yeah, Reed for me is definitely the emergency here. And yeah, I'd strongly recommend just go rookies on the bench and then really field a strong defense, because the cash generation opportunities are in other positions, particularly in those lower price points. So that's why I've made that very deliberate structural decision. Okay, into the mids. So I've gone Merritt as one of my top midfielders, and yeah, look, gives me another captain option aside from obviously Dacos in defence. So handy to have and durable. So they're the sorts of things that you want from your midfielders. You've got, again, Steele and Miller are the potential money makers. But yeah, for Nick Martin, so he's a unique, and Merritt's also a unique to my fantasy team compared to Supercoach. But yeah, Nick Martin I've got in fantasy, but not Supercoach. So, and look, he very well could be a good selection in Supercoach, but with the type of game he'll be playing, being very sort of outside, uncontested, I think he'll really suit the AFL fantasy game. He'll be used a heap. He'll be used in that Dacos-esque sort of role, just finding a heap of it, really being focused on to really sort of, I guess, use the ball as well as he can, give a bit more drive and penetration, and it's really that clean quality ball use. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that goes, but I think that'll be another successful move. And Nick Martin's a year-on-year, every year improver who really, before he was drafted, came from a lower base, wasn't a hugely productive player, but yeah, he keeps really coming back year-on-year and improving. So yeah, I do think there's that definite upside in Martin, and it's great that I could potentially in the future flip him into defense, which is a handy option to have. Certainly, because then it means I don't have to really rely on, say, I don't know, any rookie options going all that well. I can't imagine there'll be too many times in the season, if any, where I'll want more than 2 actual rookie defenders. So all those things should suit me well for the purposes of my team. Wine should make money as per in my Supercoach team. Bonner, unique to my fantasy team. But obviously not in the Supercoach. And look, I think a bit like with Mason Wood last year, he's one of those role player types where there's the flaws in his game where, look, he can't win any contested ball at all. He's allergic to the contested ball. But with the Saints, I don't think that'll really impact him in any significant way. Whereas that real driver of the footy, and with the Saints, they play a very much outside game. There's not too many contests, so I don't think it'll matter. Ross Lyon's really good at really, I guess, covering the weaknesses of individuals and really allowing them to play to their strengths, and really allowing them as well to really gain a role within the team where they can meaningfully contribute. And I think Bonner will be another that really follows that trend that we've seen really over generations now with Ross Lyon coach teams. So yeah, let's see how that goes. But yeah, I think he'll make a good amount of money, and if you have him in Supercoach, that's more than fine too. But I do like his scoring, specifically, stylistically at least, for AFL Fantasy. McKercher Sanders, must-haves on the field. And then, yeah, Roberts and Clark on the bench, I think are pretty hard to beat, to say the least. So they're the numbers in terms of the rookies I would be suggesting for AFL Fantasy. And yeah, Gawn, Grundy, same rucks, too much value to pass up. And with the ruck bench, look, Naismith was priced too high, so really you can go with anyone. I've just gone with I guess one of the bad teams, to put it that way, and just, yeah, with the dual position minimum price. There's no one else that I'm seeing as likely to be getting games necessarily, unless there's injuries. So yeah, that would be the scenario I make a switch. But yeah, for the dual position optionality, I think that's handy just in case it's required at some stage. So that roughly suits me for now. Onto the forwards. So Zach Fisher in my Supercoach team, same with Jordan. Sardis, however, is not. And I'm imagining, like, of everyone in my team, Sardis is probably the more unique player, I would imagine. Maybe Whitfield could be another. From the vibe I get on fantasy, I don't have access to who's popular and in how many teams and whatnot. But yeah, look, with Sardis, what a lot of people probably aren't aware of is, as a junior, he averaged 35 disposals in the NAB League in his draft year. So when you're doing those sorts of numbers and you're pretty low priced, well, there's substantial upside for growth. And look, for Essendon, don't think he'll have a heap of CBAs. I think he'll play mostly on a wing. Occasional CBAs possible. But yeah, we'll have to see there. But yeah, I think he'll just rack it up, and I think he'll become a regular for Essendon this year. So I do think there's a bit of upside for growth. But look, let's say he gets dropped in a couple of weeks' time. Well, no big deal. There's a heap of other cheap forward options. And if he's playing full games, it's hard to not see him scoring well. If I was to give my knock on Sardis, it would be his decision-making under pressure. But look, if he's playing more of a sort of outside role, has a bit more time and space, yeah, hopefully he'll be okay enough in that respect. But he'll rack it up at will, covers a heap of ground. He's just a magnet for the footy. So, and even playing on the outside, no big deal for him. He'll still really rack it up in bunches. So watch out for him. And more suited to fantasy as well. Can win his contested footy, but with the decision-making stuff, I do think there might be minor efficiency issues there. So for me, I'm only really considering him for the fantasy related formats. So something to be mindful of there. And then, yeah, I've really gone the rookies. So Sexton at the price point, even being slightly elevated, look, he'll be good at that price and make a heap of money, I'm expecting. Reed, Wilson. So Wilson I had on my bench in Supercoach, but yeah, I thought I'll move him onto my field here. And I needed to go a different structure for fantasy because ultimately I don't want all these key defenders ending up on my field. So with that in mind, and with Wilson having a game that's fairly suited to AFL Fantasy, being that really outside uncontested type, yeah, I think that'll probably suit best. And I've fielded him ever so slightly ahead of Dempsey for those that are interested there. And then I've gone with Kyle Lohmann for now. This could be exchanged for someone else potentially, but with Lohmann, he was really good in the VFL last year, and he's got the scope to become a regular for Brisbane. But they do have a stacked front half, so that's the main question around that to, I guess, make us wonder, I suppose, whether he can establish himself as a regular. But I think he's one of those where once he's in the team and plays a stretch of games, he'll be really hard to remove. So if he's playing round one, I'm inclined to lean that way at this stage. And then I've gone Sean Manor. So we'll have to see if he's named round one. If he is, I'll be moving him at least onto the bench, if not considering him for a field spot, because he'll rack it up. He can play midfield, cross half forward, forward pocket. He just gives you a heap of options. But I've got Dempsey a little bit ahead of him at this stage, just because from what I'm understanding with Geelong, Dempsey is ever so slightly ahead in the pecking order. But whenever Manor debuts and he's named inside the best 22, well, I think it's going to be really hard to see him losing his spot because he's a very, very good footballer. So, yeah, that's my fantasy team, and you've got my structure. So, again, as per my Supercoach video, my recommendation is follow my structure and follow my rookies. If there's a particular rookie not named in round one, we'll sub him out, put someone else in. But yeah, at this stage, this is my best guess at what should be the group. And the only two that are possibly moving out of my team, and I'm only saying possibly, is Kyle Lohmann and Sean Manor. And really that just comes down to, are they named round one? And if they are, great, they're in. If they're not, then I'll just look for the next best alternative at a cheap price point. So an ideally minimum price, but we'll see what price points and options are available. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at with my fantasy team. Thanks for watching. And next up, I should mention as well, I've got my Real Dream Team side dropping next. So look forward to that.